Welcome back, everyone. Hope you're doing great. This is Who Were the Last German I don't know if this title is grammatically correct. I just realized this title is not grammatically correct. Who were the last German holdouts? Maybe it is correct. I'm thinking of where were the last German holdouts in World War II. Anyway, guys, thank you guys for being here. This is SideQuest, of course. We did a video a couple days ago, and we hadn't done a video for SideQuest in months. So now here's another one. Yeah, World War II video. Let's see. And where were the last German holdouts in World War II? Obviously, I think it was like May or April, right, of 1945 when World War II officially ended. It was one of those 2 months, I'm pretty sure. So where were they? I mean, I'm guessing obviously you got Berlin, but there might be some more holdouts up north. Maybe Denmark, maybe Scandinavia. I'm not sure. Let's see what's up.
No matter how you look at it, the Second World War was a nasty affair, and it would have been a lot less painful for everyone if we could have just skipped it altogether and gone straight to the victory of global capitalism.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. If only Adam Smith could see us now. But there were some among the German camp who, well, they wouldn't take a hint, even after Herr Hitler performed what many would argue to be his only redeeming act, killing Hitler. That happened on the 30th of April.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking.
Which is also, coincidentally, International Jazz Day, leaving what was left of Nazi Germany in the hands of Admiral Dönitz. He would sign Germany's unconditional surrender on the 8th of May, while simultaneously organizing the largest naval evacuation in history.
Operation Hannibal, that's interesting. So a lot in, like I said, Schleswig-Holstein there, which is really Germany. You got some in Denmark, you got some in the, looks like the Balkans? The Baltics. I don't know, I said Balkans. Interesting.
Though that's a different topic. Now, at the time of the surrender, German control in Europe looked more or less like this. Certainly a fair bit of land, though
So Norway, okay.
Ironically, almost none in Germany itself. Today, we'll learn who these die-hard stragglers were and when they surrendered. Oh, and you'll also get to hear about our dear friends over at Blinkist, but more about them at the end. Let's start from the west, on the Atlantic shores of France. As we all know, the Germans conquered France in June 1940, after a less than glamorous 6-week campaign. They took control of France's Atlantic ports with the intent of using them as forward operating bases for their U-boat fleet. Now, these ports were respectable in their own right, but over the next 3 years, the Germans would build them up into impenetrable citadels, each fielding a garrison of at least 20,000 men.
Hey, that's 60K just for 3.
Fast forwarding to 1944, when D-Day rolled around and the Allies swept through the French countryside, they had to figure out what to do with all these German strongholds in their rear, so to speak. Storming them would be a bloody affair, while bombing them would result in immense collateral damage to the nearby towns and their civilian populations. So the Allies decided to simply surround them and do nothing.
Siege them.
It wasn't all that bad of a plan. The garrisons didn't really have the resources to stage a major breakout, and where would they be breaking out to, anyway? While the besiegers would just have to sit tight and keep an eye out, which was about as low risk of an assignment as one could get on the Western Front.
I mean, it's not low risk, but it's still, I mean, anything, they could come out at any point. I guess you have the advantage, but still.
The strategy worked. For once, Germany capitulated. The garrisons followed suit a few days later, happy to make it out with their lives.
Okay, so like a couple days after the armistice.
And at least some German soldiers in Lorient marked the occasion with a volleyball match. Going a bit to the northeast, we'll find the Channel Islands, the only part of the British Empire proper to be occupied by the Germans. The small archipelago had no strategic importance, of course, and was evacuated once it was clear that the Battle of France was lost, despite intense protest from our dear friend Sir Winston Churchill, who scoffed at the idea of Britain surrendering its oldest crown possession without a fight. The Germans occupied the islands with no resistance in early July 1940, and then went about their usual program of erecting forced labor camps and building extensive fortifications. Come D-Day, the islands were ignored, much like
That's interesting.
the Atlantic naval bases. However, unlike the Atlantic naval bases, the Channel Islands had no major supply stockpiles. By the time Germany capitulated, both the remaining civilians and the occupiers were on the brink of starvation.
Yeah, probably just blockaded them, right?
And so they surrendered the very next day. Further east, we have the infamous pocket of Dunkirk. In a great twist of irony, the site where the Nazis almost pushed the British Expeditionary Force into the sea would become the place of their own intense struggle. Under the iron command of Vice Admiral Friedrich Frisius, the 10,000-man garrison survived several assaults by the Allies. He famously staged the last German offensive operation in France on the dawn of April the 5th, which pushed the Allies an impressive 15 kilometers before digging in until the end of the war. He too surrendered a day after Germany capitulated, and then spent 2 years in a POW camp before ultimately being released and spending the rest of his days back home in Saxony. In the nearby Netherlands, we have 2 islands holding through the capitulation.
I always look at Flevoland. Is Flevoland even a thing at this point? It might be. It might be a thing. I always look at it though. I'm like, is that true?
The island of Texel was garrisoned by a battalion of Georgians from the country, not the state, who had been captured on the Eastern Front and had chosen to switch sides. On the 5th of April, they suddenly decided that the Nazis were no longer cool and instigated a bloody rebellion, which wasn't resolved until the Allies arrived on the 20th of May. Meanwhile, on another Dutch island, the Germans just flat out refused to surrender all the way until the 11th of June.
Wow.
Making that unremarkable strip of land the last part of Europe to be liberated from Axis occupation. To the north, in Norway, we'll find nearly 400,000 German soldiers.
In 1945?
Originally stationed to cover Germany's northern flank, by May 1945, they were surely counting their blessings that they weren't fighting on the Eastern Front. Many soldiers had an almost peacetime attitude, taking Sundays off, which made some sense. After all, Norway at the time had a population of barely 3 million, so the Germans had effectively total control over it. There was some fear that the Nazis would try to bunker down in Norway, but luckily they laid down their arms and fully surrendered on the 11th of May. On the nearby Danish island of Bornholm, the 10,000-strong German garrison initially refused to surrender to the Soviets and endured a fierce
It's crazy these numbers are just so much larger than I thought they would be.
bombing campaign before giving up on the 9th of May. The Soviets were also having a field day in Latvia, where 200,000 German and
Still, it's a ton.
Latvians were encircled, even after Admiral Dönitz's miracle evacuations. They surrendered on the 10th of May and received the classic Soviet treatment of mass deportations to forced labor camps in wonderful Siberia. On the other side of Europe, the Germans retained parts of Crete and Rhodes for a few more days, as well as scattered pockets in Yugoslavia, where things get a bit too graphic for our show. Parts of Austria and Czechia were also yet to be captured by the advancing Soviets. And of course, we have Berlin itself, where fighting continued until the 9th of May. Beyond these territories were numerous German soldiers scattered across the world. The last active U-boat, for example, fled to Argentina,
As did a lot of Germans.
providing absolutely no fuel for conspiracy theories, and only surrendered on the 17th of August. The very last German troops to give up their arms were stranded on the frigid Norwegian island of Svalbard,
They probably didn't even know what happened.
where they were tasked with establishing a secret weather station. They only got the chance to surrender on the 6th of September.
Look at that. Isn't that after, wouldn't that be after, I can't remember the date. Isn't that after the atom bombs were dropped?
When they were rescued by a crew of Norwegian seal hunters. Of course, this is just one of the thousands of stories you can find neatly retold by our good friends over at Blinkist. Thanks to the Blinkist app.
Yeah, that's it. Well, it is quite interesting. I did not know those numbers were that large. For example, like 400,000 in 1945 in Norway, 10,000 here, 10,000 there, 20,000 here, 20,000 there. Some of these instances make sense, but some of them, wow. I guess the thought process for me is similar to Dunkirk. You aggregated, like, there was a ton of, right? There was a ton of British soldiers in Dunkirk in 1940, but they were basically kind of like aggregated there. It's not like they were meaning to be there. I wonder if it was a similar instance in a lot of these places. The garrisons, though, like that like the garrisons, that seems like it was purposeful. But interesting video. Interesting video. Gives me a little bit more nuance to the end of World War II. And you know, when things are over, are they over? No. And this is World War II, where you have the telegram. Technically, you have the telephone in some instances. You have telecommunication like you've never had it before. World War One, you don't have that to a degree. You still have the telegram, but you don't have that to a degree. And then you just go farther back in history. What is an armistice? An armistice is just, you know, it's like it's like a one-dimensional armistice until you can actually move that through time and space. It's not really an armistice, is it? An armistice is only an armistice when it is enacted completely. But this, you can have a start of an armistice, right? So interesting stuff, though. Interesting stuff. It shows you another reason why telecommunication and evolution of technology is so important, because just the quickness of messages saves lives, saves lots of lives. Thank you guys for watching. Leave me some video suggestions down below. Peace out, and bye-bye.